Larry, it's very disturbing. In California in 2016, the state legislature passed a bill that required kids in public schools to take ethnic studies courses with, I think, the reasonable idea that kids would learn more about the world, learn more about other cultures, help kids work together, whoever they might be. But what's come out as a curriculum, and we're now on the third try of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. Each one has been rejected. Well, the third one is now in a public commentary period. But the curricula really are very heavily influenced by what's known as critical race theory, which is founded on the premise that slavery and white supremacy and colonialism and victimization are the primary evils that affect us as a society today, culturally and socially. And the curriculum is all about grounding kids within this way of thinking. The curriculum includes ideas for teachers to teach kids about African Americans, and who is left off the list. Martin Luther King is left off that list.
Whoa, back up. Martin Luther King is not on the list?
Martin Luther King is left off the list of black Americans to be celebrated and to be discussed within the classroom. You wouldn't guess in 100 years, well, you probably would, but ordinarily I would say a person wouldn't guess in 100 years about who is displacing Martin Luther King on the list. A number of convicted felons, including several people, convicted murderers, one of whom is a convicted killer of a policeman from about 40 years ago in Philadelphia, and the person was a former Black Panther involved in other and been prosecuted for other types of crimes. And there's several people.
Professor, another one is one that we just talked about on my program not even an hour ago. Her real name is Joanne Chesimar. She changed her name to Assata Shakur, and she murdered a New Jersey state trooper and was convicted of it, broke out of prison, fled to Cuba, is still there as we speak, Professor. And Maxine Waters wrote Fidel Castro a letter urging him to not send her back here after Congress passed a resolution demanding that he do so. And she compared her to a freedom fighter, likened her to MLK, and told her the only reason she was persecuted was because of her stance on civil rights, and urged him to keep her there, and she's still there.
Yes, she was involved in a horrendous shootout with police. So I don't know if I would call that being a freedom fighter. And Assata Shakur displaces Katherine Johnson, who was the only woman on the Apollo 11 space team who was tasked with mathematically estimating how that spacecraft would circle the moon.
I remember her.
She
was in that movie, Hidden Figures. That was about her.
Yeah. The movie Hidden Figures was really about her, and she was African American. So wouldn't it be wonderful?
So she has been displaced in favor of Assata Shakur?
Yes. Yes, and would it be wonderful for girls of all color to learn about Katherine Johnson and to aspire to be a wonderful mathematician and physicist like her? But instead, they're going to learn about Assata Shakur.
You know, Professor, watching this election, and you hear Democrats in the media say there's no, quote, widespread evidence of voter fraud, over and over again, no widespread evidence of voter fraud. What is the widespread evidence that slavery, Jim Crow, and racism are the cause of today's problems in the black community? Where's the widespread evidence of that?
You know, there are, that's obviously a very commonly held talking point within certain political circles. In the article, I write about the remarkable economic success that the Hmong people from Southeast Asia have achieved. HMONG, these are immigrants who came to the United States in the 1980s. They were living at that time much as they had lived for 200 or 300 years before that. Time had passed them by. They had an ancient language primarily made up of one-syllable words. They came to the United States and must have been like Mars for them. In 1990, less than half of them worked. Today, 60% work. In 1990, 67% of the Hmongs were on public assistance. That's down to 12% today. Their median household income has increased from 47% in 1990 to 92% in 2010. These were people with every single odd stacked against them. And yet they achieved remarkable economic success in just one generation, just 20 years, where they become essentially the median American household. And only could this happen in the United States, among a group that faced pretty much every possible challenge that they could confront. And yet the chapter in this curriculum about the Hmong people was all about social injustices in terms of the justice system and gender roles and patriarchy and matriarchy. There wasn't one word about how these people as a group had largely achieved the American dream. And that's what happens when the facts don't really line up with the narrative.
Lee, we only have about 30 seconds left. What this suggests to me is that this ethnic studies curriculum is all about letting young people know, especially people of color, know that you have been a victim, you are a victim, you will always be a victim.
Yes, it certainly paints that picture, and it's one that, in my opinion, holds back people that have those views. It's a shame.
The piece is called Ethnic Studies Curriculum Promotes Divisiveness and Indoctrination. It is written by my guest, Professor Lee Ohanian. It's up on LarryElder.com. Professor, as always, thank you very much for coming on and sticking your neck out and taking a task like this, because I'm sure it doesn't make you the most popular person on campus.
Larry, you're absolutely right about that. Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure.
God bless. 888-971-SAGE.